Fairy tales hold a special place in our lives, from childhood stories passed down from generation to generation, to the rich legacy they leave in the collective unconscious. These stories, often read at night around the hearth, offer more than simple entertainment. They are a deep source of nourishment for the soul. The tradition of telling bedtime stories is an ancient practice that dates back to a time when people, after a long day's work, gathered around the fire, sharing tales of mythical lands and heroes. This ritual not only provides comfort, but also serves as a bridge to a deeper understanding of ourselves. The word humility comes from the Latin word humus, which means earth. It is said that humility is the greatest virtue, and through it, we can achieve spiritual enlightenment. Just like how the hearth was a central part of the home, fairy tales are integral to the spiritual growth of individuals, especially during the formative years. They offer an essential spiritual connection, acting as a reminder of our roots and the universal human experiences of struggle and growth. Fairy tales are not just for children, nor are they limited to tales of kings, queens, and magical creatures. They are timeless, archetypal stories that resonate with all ages. Fairy tales offer a rich tapestry of emotions, mythological symbols, and moral lessons. They serve as an essential complement to our everyday life, guiding us through challenges and helping us connect with parts of our inner worlds that remain otherwise hidden. As children, we are naturally attuned to the world of the imagination. Fairy tales allow us to explore deep emotions that cannot always be expressed in the real world. However, as we grow older, society often dismisses the imagination as impractical, pushing us to follow more linear paths: education, career, marriage. Yet, the archetypes present in fairy tales, like the eternal youth or the hero's journey, speak to our subconscious, reminding us of what is lost when we abandon the world of imagination and creativity. Fairy tales serve as powerful mirrors of the soul, reflecting our own struggles, desires, and inner conflicts. When we read stories of heroes battling dragons, they do not simply represent an external enemy, but also symbolize the inner trials we all face in our lives. These tales reflect the journey toward becoming our ideal selves, confronting personal dragons that prevent us from reaching our full potential. The treasure gained after slaying the dragon becomes the reward, not just material wealth, but spiritual self-realization. The characters in these tales reflect parts of our own personalities, and the difficulties they face mirror the universal struggles every human experiences. By reflecting on these tales, we can better understand ourselves and the human condition. They serve as a gentle reminder that life's trials, though difficult, are a necessary part of our growth. Understanding ourselves allows us to better understand others and the world around us, helping us move toward emotional maturity and spiritual fulfillment. The hero's journey in fairy tales. At the heart of every fairy tale is the heroic journey, which is also the universal human journey. Joseph Campbell's concept of the monomyth, or the hero's journey, is the foundation for understanding many of the world's myths and fairy tales. This pattern is central to the narrative of every fairy tale, where the hero is called to embark on an adventure, faces trials, and returns transformed. It is the journey of self-discovery and spiritual awakening. For example, in the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, Jack embarks on a seemingly simple quest to exchange a cow for magic beans. But his journey leads him to a giant's castle, where he faces a series of challenges and eventually triumphs. The Grail, symbolizing divine truth and self-realization, is not merely about obtaining an object, but also about the personal growth that comes with it. Similarly, the journey of Percival in the Arthurian legends represents the classic hero's journey. Initially, Percival is ignorant of the deeper spiritual significance of his quest. His failure to ask the right question at the Fisher King's castle leads to his realization that the true Grail is not just a physical object, but represents the divine connection one must cultivate through personal transformation. His journey teaches that self-realization is the key to unlocking spiritual enlightenment. The hero's journey symbolizes the transformation of the self through struggles and self-awareness. In the story of Percival, he fails to understand the significance of the Grail when he first sees it, as he is caught up in external rewards, rather than seeking spiritual wisdom. His realization that the Grail requires inner purity and spiritual growth is a crucial turning point in the quest. This mirrors our own life journey, where we must overcome personal flaws and misperceptions in order to achieve spiritual enlightenment. Just as Percival learns to ask the right questions, we too must learn to question our assumptions and beliefs in order to discover deeper truths. The Grail itself is a symbol of the wisdom that awaits those who are ready to confront their inner darkness and transform themselves into their highest selves. This transformation is not easy. It requires us to confront our deepest fear and weaknesses. But in doing so, we find the treasure of self-knowledge and spiritual awakening. The archetypes of the hero and the shadow. In every fairy tale, archetypal characters play a pivotal role in conveying deep psychological truths. These archetypes, such as the hero, the mentor, the villain, and the shadow, are not merely characters, but representations of different facets of the human psyche. According to Carl Jung, these archetypes reside in the collective unconscious, representing the universal themes, struggles, and potential inherent in every human being. The hero represents the part of us that is called to transform, to grow, and to overcome personal challenges. However, the hero cannot succeed without encountering the shadow, the dark side of the self that embodies our fears, insecurities, and unconscious desires. The shadow often takes the form of a villain in fairy tales, a character who embodies everything the hero must overcome or integrate. The battle between the hero and the villain symbolizes the internal struggle between the higher and lower aspects of our nature. In many fairy tales, the hero must confront their own shadow, their own weaknesses or dark desires, in order to achieve true spiritual enlightenment. Take Snow White, for example. The evil queen, consumed by envy, represents Snow White's shadow, her own inner darkness, vanity, and selfishness. Snow White's journey is one of purification, as she must face the temptations and dangers that come from the queen's jealousy and wickedness. Ultimately, Snow White's success in overcoming these challenges leads her to freedom and wholeness, symbolizing the triumph of innocence, purity, and love over envy and destruction. The mentor archetype and its role in personal growth. One of the most important archetypes in fairy tales is the mentor, a wise figure who guides the hero on their journey towards self-realization. The mentor offers knowledge, wisdom, and support, helping the hero navigate the challenges and obstacles they face. The mentor's role is not just to provide guidance, but also to help the hero discover their inner strength and potential. In many fairy tales, the mentor is an older figure who embodies wisdom and experience. Characters like Merlin in the Arthurian legends, or the fairy godmother in Cinderella, represent the guiding force that helps the hero transcend their limitations and discover their true purpose. The mentor's role is often to remind the hero of their divine nature and to help them recognize that their journey is one of self-discovery, a process of unlocking their own potential and spiritual power. The mentor archetype also teaches the hero the importance of sacrifice. Often, the hero must give up something significant in order to achieve their goal. This sacrifice symbolizes the letting go of ego and the willingness to serve a greater purpose. Cinderella, for example, must sacrifice her material desires and embrace humility to achieve her happily ever after. The mentor's guidance is key to helping the hero understand that true fulfillment comes from inner transformation, not from external circumstances. The mentor-hero relationship is one of mutual growth and spiritual connection. The mentor helps the hero recognize their inner worth and purpose, but the hero's own willingness to embrace the lessons and challenges is what ultimately leads to personal transformation. The mentor provides the tools for success, but the hero must use these tools to confront their shadow and achieve spiritual wholeness. In many cases, the mentor may not always be present, symbolizing the hero's need to trust their own intuition and develop inner wisdom. The mentor acts as a catalyst, sparking the hero's spiritual evolution and helping them find their own divine guidance. This relationship is essential because it represents the inner wisdom that each individual can access when they embark on their personal spiritual journey. As the hero faces their trials and challenges, they gradually integrate the wisdom of their mentor into their own being, becoming a more complete and empowered version of themselves. The villain archetype and confronting inner darkness. While the hero represents the path toward personal growth, the villain is the embodiment of the inner darkness that the hero must overcome. The villain in fairy tales is not merely an external threat, but represents the shadow aspect of the hero's own psyche, those unresolved emotions, fears, and unconscious desires that must be confronted in order for the hero to grow. The villain is often portrayed as a figure consumed by greed, envy, or power, representing everything that the hero must resist. Characters like the wicked stepmother in Cinderella or the stepmother in Snow White symbolize the toxic aspects of the hero's shadow, the parts of themselves that they need to confront and overcome in order to integrate these dark aspects into their personality. In some stories, the villain is redeemed or transformed, symbolizing the possibility of inner reconciliation. For instance, the Beast in Beauty and the Beast represents a man whose external appearance hides his internal suffering. His transformation into a prince represents the power of love, forgiveness, and self-acceptance. This transformation highlights the healing power of confronting the shadow and choosing compassion over hatred. The villain archetype embodies the shadow aspects that must be integrated into the self in order to achieve wholeness. In Cinderella, the stepmother's cruelty symbolizes the insecurity, pride, and selfishness that Cinderella must confront in her own heart. By facing the shadow, the hero can learn to transcend these dark forces and find the light within. Overcoming the villain is not just about defeating an external enemy, but about integrating the lessons the villain offers. In fairy tales, the villain is often defeated through the hero's own growth, not through sheer strength, but through wisdom, patience, and spiritual maturity. This transformation, both in the hero and the villain, symbolizes the redemption that can be achieved through self-awareness and spiritual integration. Fairy tales as psychological tools for healing. Fairy tales are not just stories for entertainment. They have a deeper psychological significance. For Carl Jung, fairy tales are mirrors that reflect the unconscious mind, containing hidden meanings and symbols that speak to our inner world. They serve as psychological tools that allow individuals to process and understand their fears, desires, and struggles. By engaging with fairy tales, we enter a world that reflects both our conscious experiences and unconscious drives, enabling us to integrate the darker parts of ourselves and find healing. Fairy tales often depict the hero's journey as a process of confronting trauma, loss, or pain, and emerging stronger and more integrated. The dark forest where many heroes venture represents the unknown territory of the psyche, and the monsters and villains they encounter are often projections of the hero's inner conflicts. These stories help us face our personal shadows, the aspects of ourselves we often ignore or suppress, allowing us to integrate them into our whole self. In modern psychology, particularly in Jungian therapy, fairy tales are used as a means of exploring the unconscious. By analyzing the archetypes and symbols within these stories, individuals can uncover hidden truths about their own lives and gain insight into their psychological condition. The process of identifying with the characters in fairy tales allows us to recognize aspects of our own psyche and better understand the dynamics of our emotional and spiritual growth. The hero's encounter with the shadow and the role of transformation. The hero's encounter with the shadow is a key theme in many fairy tales. The shadow represents those aspects of the hero's personality that they have rejected or denied. These may be their fear, anger, pride, or weaknesses. In fairy tales, the hero must confront the shadow in order to transcend it. Often, the hero faces external challenges that reflect their internal conflict, battling monsters, villains, or illusions that are reflections of their own emotional struggles. Take Beauty and the Beast, for instance. The Beast, with his frightening appearance and wild nature, symbolizes the hero's unconscious fears and inner turmoil. Initially, Beauty is repelled by him, but as she gets to know him, she realizes that beneath his rough exterior lies compassion and love. This reflects the psychological process of integrating the shadow, accepting our flaws, and recognizing that growth comes from embracing both the light and dark aspects of the self. The transformation of the Beast into a prince represents the healing power of self-acceptance and love. In this sense, the fairy tale illustrates the idea that healing and wholeness are achieved not by avoiding our darker impulses, but by integrating them into the whole self. This acceptance allows us to live more authentically, embracing both the light and dark parts of who we are. In many fairy tales, the shadow is not an external monster to be vanquished, but an internal aspect of the self that needs to be understood and integrated. In Cinderella, the wicked stepmother and her ugly sisters represent Cinderella's own inner struggles, the feelings of rejection, insecurity, and self-doubt that she has long suppressed. The transformation from humble servant to queen is not just about external recognition, but about integrating her worth into her identity. Cinderella's rise represents the psychological transformation that occurs when we confront our inner darkness and self-worth issues. By embracing our flaws and vulnerabilities, we are able to achieve wholeness. The fairy tale shows that personal growth and healing occur not through perfection, but through self-acceptance, love, and the willingness to confront and integrate our shadow selves. Fairy tales as a tool for resilience and empowerment. Fairy tales also serve as a source of resilience and empowerment. In the midst of hardship, many fairy tale characters experience great suffering. They are abandoned, betrayed, or forced to face insurmountable challenges. However, what sets fairy tales apart is that the characters often find strength and wisdom through their trials. Cinderella is a prime example. Despite being oppressed and mistreated, she retains her kindness, humility, and inner strength, which ultimately lead her to victory. Fairy tales teach us that, in times of difficulty, we too can overcome adversity by relying on our inner resilience. The struggles of the characters are meant to inspire us to persevere and grow, even in the face of hardship. These stories provide a sense of hope, reminding us that, like the heroes, we can find redemption and empowerment by facing our challenges head-on. In modern psychology, resilience is recognized as the ability to bounce back from adversity and to find strength through hardship. Fairy tales are a reflection of this psychological principle, where the heroes demonstrate psychological resilience through their ability to confront their fears, endure pain, and ultimately achieve growth. Just as Cinderella overcomes her challenges and becomes the queen, so too can we rise above the difficulties we face in life. The message of fairy tales is clear. Empowerment comes from confronting adversity and finding strength in the process. In Cinderella, her suffering is a metaphor for the inner trials we all face. By enduring and maintaining her purity of heart, she rises above her circumstances, demonstrating the power of resilience. Her story is a reminder that no matter how difficult our challenges may seem, we have the strength to overcome them if we remain true to ourselves and embrace our personal growth. The enduring influence of fairy tales on modern psychology. Fairy tales are far from being relics of the past. Their influence continues to resonate deeply in modern psychology. While these tales were originally passed down orally, their universal themes of personal transformation, moral choices, and the struggle between good and evil have evolved into tools for psychological healing and self-growth in contemporary therapy. Modern psychologists often incorporate fairy tales into therapeutic practices, using them as archetypal tools to help individuals explore and understand their own emotional journeys. Fairy tales offer a unique lens through which to view our inner worlds, the conflicts, desires, and fears we may not fully comprehend. In Jungian psychology, for example, fairy tales are seen as psychological blueprints that allow us to confront the unconscious. Each fairy tale mirrors aspects of the human experience, reflecting our journey from innocence to experience, from ignorance to awareness. They provide a safe space in which we can examine the deeper psychological patterns that shape our lives. Therapists and counselors use fairy tales to help clients recognize the archetypes at play in their own lives, such as the hero, the shadow, and the mentor, allowing them to better understand their own emotional struggles and life choices. By identifying with characters in fairy tales, clients can begin to understand their own psychological battles and confront the inner demons that hold them back from personal growth. Fairy tales as a tool for self-reflection and identity formation. One of the most powerful aspects of fairy tales is their ability to guide us through self-reflection and help us understand our personal identity. The process of identifying with a fairy tale character, whether it is the courageous hero, the wise mentor, or the evil villain, allows us to explore the different facets of our own psyche. These characters embody universal emotions and experiences, helping us better understand our own strengths and weaknesses. Self-reflection is a key part of psychological growth, and fairy tales offer a mirror through which we can explore our own beliefs, values, and identities. The hero's journey in fairy tales often mirrors the development of the self, a process in which the protagonist must leave their comfort zone, face challenges, and ultimately transform into a more mature and empowered individual. This transformation symbolizes the psychological growth that happens when we embrace our own darkness and light, acknowledging the duality that exists within us all. Characters such as Cinderella, Beauty, and Snow White undergo personal growth and self-discovery throughout their stories, teaching us the importance of self-love, forgiveness, and compassion. The obstacles these characters face, rejection, betrayal, and isolation, are universal struggles that anyone can relate to. These stories show us that, no matter how difficult life's challenges may seem, we can rise above them and emerge stronger, just as the fairy tale characters do. Fairy tales provide psychological archetypes that allow us to understand our inner struggles. Cinderella's story is one such archetype that teaches us about self-worth and the importance of inner strength. Despite her suffering, Cinderella's growth is a powerful reminder that true transformation comes from within. The shadow, represented by the wicked stepmother, reflects self-doubt and inner conflict, emotions that Cinderella must face and overcome. By identifying with Cinderella's journey, we can understand how we, too, must confront our own negative beliefs and transform them into sources of empowerment. In therapy, the process of identifying with such characters allows individuals to reframe their own experiences, recognizing that they are the heroes of their own stories. Fairy tales, in this context, serve as blueprints for personal healing, encouraging us to embrace our flaws, face our fears, and take control of our destinies. The therapeutic use of fairy tales in healing the inner child. The concept of the inner child is a powerful tool in modern psychological practices, and fairy tales are often used to help individuals connect with and heal their inner child. The inner child represents the emotional aspect of ourselves that carries the pain, joy, and vulnerability of our early childhood experiences. Fairy tales, with their focus on innocence, discovery, and growth, provide a path to healing the wounds of our inner child. For example, in Hansel and Gretel, the children are abandoned by their parents and must rely on their resourcefulness and courage to survive. This story helps individuals reconnect with their own inner strength and resilience, even in the face of abandonment or rejection. The Wicked Witch in the story represents the dangers and negative influences that can harm the child's psyche. But ultimately, Hansel and Gretel overcome these threats through cooperation, intelligence, and love. In therapy, clients are encouraged to revisit fairy tales to reawaken their inner child's wisdom and nurture their own emotional needs. By reflecting on the heroes and struggles in fairy tales, individuals can gain a deeper understanding of their own childhood wounds and begin the process of emotional healing. Fairy tales encourage us to embrace our innocence while simultaneously facing the difficult emotions that we've repressed over time. Healing the inner child through fairy tales. Healing the inner child is a key theme in both Jungian therapy and modern therapeutic practices. Fairy tales offer a safe space to reconnect with our childhood experiences and reclaim lost parts of ourselves. The character of Hansel and Gretel, for example, is a perfect representation of the inner child's ability to survive and thrive despite difficult circumstances. Their victory over the Wicked Witch symbolizes the process of emotional growth and healing. The story teaches us that even when we feel abandoned or lost, there is always an opportunity for transformation and empowerment. Through the process of healing our inner child, we can integrate past wounds and create a more balanced and authentic self. The wisdom that comes from connecting with our inner child is essential in overcoming emotional blockages and achieving spiritual healing. Fairy tales and their role in the collective unconscious. Beyond personal healing, fairy tales play an important role in the collective unconscious, which, according to Carl Jung, is a shared realm of memories and archetypes that all humans inherit. These stories, passed down through generations, are part of the collective wisdom of humankind, offering insights into the universal patterns of human experience. Fairy tales reflect universal themes, such as the struggle between good and evil, the search for meaning, and the journey towards self-realization. By engaging with fairy tales, we connect with the collective consciousness, the shared human experiences that transcend individual lives. The tales help us tap into the wisdom of generations that have lived before us, teaching us that we are part of a greater story. Just as fairy tales have evolved over time, so too do the patterns of human experience, each generation adding new layers of understanding to the ancient truths they carry.